Some public comment?
Yes. Robert Camara.
Mr. Camara?
Yes. We'll background first, obviously. Some of you know that I ran for first recall. So I have a perspective, I think that's,
Can I get your address, please?
sure, 127 Canyon, G-A-G-N-O-N Street, Laurel. Okay, obviously I ran the first recall. We actually got almost 17,000 people out to vote. Other recall, which was not successful. It was a different kind of recall. Ours was run by regular people. The other recall was run, they had a lot of lawyers who could get in, we had no money. But what concerns me about some of the discussions, I heard some things on the radio talking about what this committee is looking at. And I heard somebody say that they're worried about increasing the amount of signatures it takes to initiate a recall. I have a problem with that because obviously that threshold is not a high threshold. When you look at a 20-day window, and people like our recall, obviously the second recall was about Jason Correa. You all know that. People were engaged. They were running up to people to get signatures. I had regular working people in my recall that had to take time off from work, stand in parking lots, stop and shop, and everywhere to get signatures, and it was a Herculean effort on their part. It's difficult. And on the radio, I hear somebody kind of having a cavalier attitude saying that, frivolous recalls. Some of you know that I've been doing this a long time, and Attorney Mitchell knows that when he was mayor, him and I went after it, we never had a recall. I've been around for a long time. I started this when I was elected president of Firefighters Union in 1981. I've been doing it ever since. The reality is that there's only been 2 recalls in my recollection. They're not something that's done frivolously. And if somebody does it frivolously, you will find out very quickly that they're not going to be able to do it, because this takes a commitment on behalf of people. The other problem I have is when you raise the threshold, you're basically suppressing the voice of the people. This country was established because the people run the government. We are the government. I know people here are constitutional lawyers, but I got a couple things from our Constitution which predated the regular one. We all know what Article 4 says: power is originally inherent and consequently derived from the people, which is fundamentally what's in the Declaration of Independence. Article 5 says clearly, all power residing originally in the people and being derived from them, several magistrates and officers of government vested with authority, whether legislative, executive, or judicial, are their substitutes and agents at all times answerable to them. The people of this city should be able to take and get a recall if they're not satisfied with the government. I have problems with the elevation in the signatures to run. I think anybody in the United States that wants to run for office should be able to run with their own signature. Because the fact is, I heard the first one, and I heard things, people they're discriminating against the average person. They're saying, you're not a valid candidate if you can't get 150 signatures. Why are you invalid? Maybe you gotta work 2 jobs. Maybe you don't have the time to go on 100, but that doesn't mean you don't have a good idea. Even if you don't get elected, people can bring up ideas. Most of you, I think, know who Hegel is and his theory. His theory is thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The way we move forward is by having different opinions and coming up with a synthesis. And our own Declaration of Independence clearly states, to secure these rights, government, and I'm reading it, I can paraphrase it pretty well. Since I'm talking to a couple of constitutional lawyers, I want to kind of get it right. Okay? Governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That wherever any form of government becomes destructive to each end, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation in such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall be most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Without a manageable recall, and I will say there's a whole problem, and I'm going to go back and give a little bit more context. As far as I'm concerned, the charter you guys are looking at is illegal anyway. Because Mr. Robillard, who filed a minority opinion on the charter when we opposed it, remembers, the ballot question said we were gonna keep our original charter and tweak it. And then, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Robillard, when that elected committee got started, they said it's gonna be too difficult or too expensive or too hard, or too long so they threw the entire old charter into the barrel, which I have heard state officials have said was a very good fundamental charter, it needed updated. So what we voted on is not what we got. This charter is a disaster. And the two things I'm here for is, you should not raise it from 5%. And as far as an individual, I'll segue into my second part, but as far as a person who is eliminated in the first half of the ballot, I'll give you something to think about, maybe my rationale is wrong, but you can. That is his election. If they're gonna vote him up or down, the people who vote decide his fate. To bring him down to the second half of the ballot, how does that make any sense to any normal person?
I just want to ask just two quick things.
Sure.
Just on the recall, so is your position that it should just be a ballot for recall? That's it?
I
On one day?
do believe that. I mean, I think that dangling participle that we had created more problems than it was worth.
And I think that's the committee's sense. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think everyone agrees the first election should be recall or not. Then the question is, do you go to the council president and just fill a vacancy? Do you have a primary and a final? Or do you just have one final and whoever gets the most votes?
Well, I think the
Wins.
fairness methodology is, because obviously I ran a union for nearly 25 years. Whenever we had someone leave a position or be taken away out of a position, our bylaws clearly stated that if, the vice president would ascend to the presidency, but would be there temporarily if more than half the term was, or less than half the term was there. But if there was more than 50% of the term left, we would have a regular election, and that's the way we did it. And I think that's a common sense way to do this. You should recall a person, and that person should not be eligible to run because the people have already said that. And we basically, if somebody gets thrown out with 9 months left in a term, we shouldn't have an election. But
Yeah, just go with
if
the
we've got
council
18
president.
months or something, so I appreciate it.
I think you'll be happy to know, though, if you go look at the past meetings, we discussed the recall at length. We might wrap up discussion about it tonight, but, a motion was made to eliminate the candidates from the same ballot. That passed unanimously. It's just recommendations we're making. You know that we're not changing this today, but that particular motion passed unanimously. So our recommendation is that that election does not take place at the same time. So that was one of the court challenges. And one of the other things that I think unanimously passed this board was that the number of signatures required be decreased. A motion was made, there was discussion about it, and it would have been nice, if we could change it right now, but we can't.